let's say. So
It's good anyway. It's good. It's all good. Okay, so let's start this one off. So my name is Paul Harvey, and this is a Market That video. And to get a little bit of information about myself, because there's some mixed people on this line here, I am a long-term marketing professional. I was involved in the corporate world for about 20 years, and then I moved to Scotland 12 years ago. To do life differently, and so that's what I did. I became a stay-at-home father and started my own business, and have been doing marketing and digital marketing most of that time. And I have never chosen to grow my business. I've always kind of let it flow with how these things are. But I've come to the stage in life now that I'm looking back for some more energy. So I'll come back into that, what that is. I'd like to introduce my guest today. Because I was in this quandary, I reached out to someone I've seen on Facebook and seen around in various locations. And I was quite inspired by what Anthony has been saying, because Anthony's been talking about what it takes to actually move forward, to find goals and how to kind of make those goals happen in life. And I was quite inspired by how Anthony's approached this. So I'd like to introduce Anthony Dexmere on the line here. And I'm going to ask Anthony to say more about himself, because I know him as a fitness professional, but I think there's more to Anthony than that. So I'm going to pass you over. So Anthony, tell me a bit more about yourself.
okay, well, thank you for the introduction first, and thank you for having me here. So yes, I started in the fitness industry. So like, you know, the classic way, you start in the big box gym and then you want to have your own studio. So that's what I did. And so I've had that studio for 2 years now. And actually that's when you realize that marketing is really important when you want a business like this. So that pushed me to study marketing really hard, and I ended up enjoying it just as much as I enjoyed the personal training part. And then also I fell in love with the whole mindset aspect of the whole game, because you realize that a lot of where people are struggling in the fitness, on the fitness side of things, it has to do with mindset and just setting up habits and all that stuff. And so that's what led me to study further and study coaching, more in the general sense, like helping people through changes and really helping them live their dream. So this is what I'm doing now, and this is why I created the Facebook group Break the Bonds, to really help people live their dream, live life purposefully. And yeah, that's probably what's led you to me.
I think it probably is, yes. So as I started to say, well, I've always had a struggle with goals personally, and I see it also in a lot of the businesses I work in. I see the fact that they have these ideas where they want to go, but there's no energy to get there. And a lot of it is because where they want to go, it's where they think they should go, but not really where they want to be. It's this kind of duality of like, I should grow my business, I should become a bigger shop or a bigger this. And it's like, because a bit of that is ego.
Yeah.
And you know what everyone else thinks or says you should do. And I noticed there's lots of things around this whole process of goal setting. Now, last year, I took on the process called, and it's reached over the, I took on this process. No, it's going to be back to front, isn't it? It's called the 12-week year. Is it? Does that read for you, or does that? Can you read that?
I haven't read it. I've heard about it. I haven't read this one.
Is it backwards for you?
No, it's no.
Okay, because when I look at the camera, it shows backwards. I'm just curious. So it's a 12-week year. So the idea of this idea, what they discovered is that a lot of companies and people and businesses and all sorts of organizations were more productive in the last 3 months of the year than they were any other time. And the reason they found this is because this idea of I'll get it done for Christmas, or we'll get it done for the end of the year, was such a powerful driver, was such a powerful, solid deadline in the sand, that people made it happen because they had this very strong, hard deadline. And so they used the process of creating hard deadlines and creating a 12-week cycle to say, okay, you'll get a big goal done every 12 weeks. And it's a very clever idea, and it uses systems to break it down. So I did this last year, and I was in the process and probably till the end of January, maybe a little bit into February. And I literally went mad. I literally just went and just stopped. It just drew me. It just didn't work for me. Now, what I realized happened is that although my goal was to grow my business and to find more clients and all these sort of stuff, it wasn't connected to anything.
Yeah. So you didn't have a big why for doing that?
No. And it's like, what the hell is my why? And that's what I recognize, that I actually don't know my why. I do know my why, sort of. It's not that strong. But what I recognize is lots of people actually kind of try and drive to goals without a why.
Yeah. And I think this is exactly where a lot of people fail. Because even you can trace everything back to why, actually. If you watch Simon Sinek's video, Start With Why, it just, everything can be traced back to that. So, and he actually had once he had a video where he told people how he introduced himself, and it turns out like Simon Sinek's a consultant, right? So he doesn't have many letters to his name, and he said once he met a CEO, the CEO asked, "What do you do?" And so he presented himself with why, how, what, saying, you know, I'm really excited when I get up in the morning because I do this, this, and this. And then he proceeded to the end of his presentation, and the CEO immediately wanted to have an appointment with him without asking him any of his qualifications or anything of the sort. Because when you are purposeful, when you lead with purpose, everything else, like, people let their guards down completely. So suddenly they're not skeptical anymore. They know you have a mission. And actually, it turns out when it comes to seduction, like, women actually are primarily attracted to men with a purpose. There's nothing more attractive in a man than having a purpose, actually. So for a woman, they're primarily attracted by men with purpose. So everything can be traced back to why. So if you start a 90-day goal, as specific as it can be, if you don't have the why, and the why behind the why, I would say, it's going to be hard. Because with every goal, there are going to be obstacles, and there are going to be what we call the pit, which we can talk about later on. And if you don't have this why, then the temptation to let go and completely give up is too strong.
Right. So how do you find the why?
Well, actually, as curious as it can sound, very often it takes action.
Yes.
Yeah. Very often you can wonder about your why for hours and never find it. So very often, if you have a project, if you have something that drives you, taking the next step will help you redefine your why and will help you define your purpose better. So very often we wait for inspiration to come, to take action. And very often it's just the next step and inspiration is there.
And you see that with people that say, I just do the next thing that occurs to me, and the next and the next and the next. I just do what's in front of me. Yeah.
Yeah, very often. So thinking can be a giant waste of time.
And it's interesting that, you know, a lot of people say, well, you need to kind of go inside yourself and really, really identify what it is inside. And as you say, it can be a waste of time. I mean, there is a duality in this one, because, I mean, if you look at this guy here, I don't know if you've heard of this guy.
You know what? I've almost finished it. I think I've got like 3 pages left.
Yeah. I mean, he's a little economical with the truth. He actually did pay a fine. He paid $2.5 million. I'm not letting the cat out of the bag here, but I mean, basically, he was a CEO of a large company, and he missed an accounting fraud. So therefore, he was responsible for something. So yeah, he had to pay a fine. But yeah, fascinating story. And for those people watching here or listening to us here, this story is about a man who literally meditates his way to become a CEO of the largest medical software company in the world, well, in the US. And he just meditates daily. In his log cabin, in his forest, in his woodland, and he just does what's in front of him to the best of his ability. And before he knows it, he's the CEO of a huge company. And it's a fascinating story. Now, there's a guy that did not set goals at all.
No. Or at least it doesn't say it in the book. But Here's here's where this book is interesting. It's because, so the guy didn't, well, according to the book anyway, we'll just assume everything's true, just for simplicity's sake. But so the guy just wanted peace and quiet in his life. That was his preferences. So his preference mind, what we call the ego, the conditioned part of you.
Yeah.
So his actually search for himself came from ego. It didn't come from intuition and really a willingness to find himself that is deep within.
Yeah.
So he had become this persona. He built up his persona around that. So suddenly there were things that were contrary to that, and his preference mind didn't want that. But his intuition was always that it was the next thing to do. And that's something that's really, really hard to recognize, actually, intuition versus your thinking mind. Because your thinking mind can be conditioned. So if you believe in such things, but your thinking mind can be conditioned, and it is. It is conditioned by all your past and everything you've learned and everything you've lived through. And intuition is actually part of your higher self, let's call it that. And intuition, normally, actually, it's not conditioned. And if you experience intuition, it comes to you very quickly in a very small voice, and it often doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, and you don't want to follow it. You're like, no, I don't want to do that. But he actually let go of that part of him, and he decided to just surrender to what was in front of him. And, reading that book, I thought, gee, I don't know if I would be able to do that. Because it is hard to give up the thinking mind. And the thinking mind is what screws you up. It's what makes you give up on a goal. Because if you actually ask fewer questions when you do something, you end up with a work done most of the time. Most of the time, if you just focus on doing the work, you end up with something done. You were mentioning, the incentive to have something done by Christmas. Funny, because my Kindle book, I put it on Kindle on the 25th. 25th, because I wanted it done by Christmas. So yeah, it is powerful, and yeah, the deadline is powerful. And I guess the key, like for Christmas, it's true that we want things done, by the end of the year, we want to have achieved something. And it's when we look at the year from January, we're like, oh, we have time. That's the trap. Because we have time, we start doing too much thinking. And meditating is not thinking, actually. Meditating is actually making space between thoughts and reducing that train of thoughts in your mind. So it's meant to normally be able to listen to your intuition better and make you take action much more than you think.
I perceive meditation, and I do a little. I perceive it as a process of allowing myself to focus, and that's what I think Michael achieved. This guy, Michael Singer, because of his dedication to meditation, he learned a process of focus, and I think that's what made him so good at what he did. He could exclude everything else. Now I think that's the hardest thing in life, really, is the noise factor that we're surrounded by. Life has not got quieter. Life has got more and more busy. We've got bloody phones, we've got this, we've got that, we've got so much coming in, and the way of actually finding any peace and quiet, which is what he was searching for, and a way of being able to clearly focus on something, that's what he achieved. And then what makes that book so amazing is that the surrender experiment was he would accept everything. So even when something came at him that he did not want to do, because it was offered to him. I mean, it's like he was offered, he was told that I want you to come and teach our college, and he didn't want to teach, but I want you to come in. So he thought, well, I don't want to come and teach, certainly not economics, which he discovered. So he went into the interview and they said, what do you want to teach? I want to teach mindfulness, he said in his own way. And they said yes. But yep. He accepted the idea that he had to do it, and he got it, and it turned out in the right way for him. So it is fascinating how that process of saying yes to whatever comes, and I've started experimenting with that myself, and I have to say I've not fallen in any traps yet. So But what is interesting, this intuition stuff, it's like yesterday, I can do the small intuition. The big intuition doesn't always happen. Yesterday, I meant to go food shopping at a certain time, and I hadn't been. And eventually I went out quite late. My wife came home from work, and I thought, I need to get this stuff. So I went out shopping. Now I went out and I met someone who I hadn't met for quite a long time, and it was a really important conversation. And it's these kind of connections you make. I could have gone out any time of the day, and I had planned to go earlier. It's just that I ended up going later and met this person. And I just find it fascinating that when you are open to intuition, you do good things happen.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, probably part of the reason why we don't listen to intuition is that more and more it's become a bit clearer that intuition doesn't come from the brain, and that it actually comes from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because the heart is actually, it has got this network of neurons, just like a small brain, actually. And they did an experiment with high arousal images versus low arousal images. So they got people in front of a screen. They just had to press a button, and the program would randomly choose, after a few seconds, to show them high arousal images, like very shocking images, or images of a flower, or something low arousal. Turns out, they monitored the heart rate, and before high arousal images, the heart rate would drop in anticipation before they even saw the image. So the heart was able to predict what kind of image would pop up, actually. So that's the fascinating part about heart intelligence and how it relates to intuition, because there are meditation techniques, and actually this is the way I prefer to meditate. When you actually go in your heart, and just imagine, like, when you settle down and first focus on your breathing, then you imagine that your heart just expands with every breath in, and then contracts with every breath out. Just this, generally, it brings a lot of peace and quiet. And actually, it's a powerful tool to let go of fear, because in your heart, the heart can't really feel fear. So fear is all made up in the mind. It's all made up in the mind about the future and all that stuff. But in that place, you can almost feel no fear. So suddenly you're able to listen to what's said in here, and you can try asking some questions, and you'll see that very often the answers don't make any sense.
It's interesting you point that out, because I did some Qigong probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And one of the meditations in Qigong has your heart as if it were a lotus flower opening.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly the Chinese medicine or Qigong uses the same process. Yeah, and obviously that's ancient teachings. So this stuff is not new.
Completely. I mean, the Asian, actually in Asia, they've known so many things for so long that we haven't yet filtered in here.
No.
In our Western societies, but they've understood a lot of things that, I hope it's starting to spread out, and I hope it's going to spread out even more, because clearly we can use some of that.
So let's move us on. So we've got this sense that we've got to find a clear why for something, and it will be achieved by the techniques that we've just talked about. It'll be achieved by meditation or listening or action. There's a variety of things that we can do to move towards that. Okay, so once you've set that goal, the 12-week year has you break it down into manageable pieces and develop strategies towards getting to that goal. And then it uses a variety of things. And one of the big things in that 12-week year is accountability. Is finding an accountability partner or finding accountability group, somewhere where you put what you're doing, state it publicly in some way, so that other people can. Well, it's a question about how that accountability works. I guess it's kind of ties in with my ego. If people see me failing at something, it doesn't feel good. So therefore,
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts around that accountability process?
Well, there are two schools of thoughts when it comes to that. And so there's the school of thought that says if you need accountability, you haven't got the right goal.
Okay.
and there's a school of thought that says really, well, you need accountability because that's when your mind starts messing with you, you will be reminded that no, your ego is going to get hurt because you're going to be exposed in front of these people. I guess I've used both. I've used accountability in mastermind groups or no accountability at all. When you've got the why and when you can remind yourself every day of it and of your goal, you can do without it. But I guess it's still a big plus. It's still a big plus to have accountability. But I would say make sure when you become accountable to people, so if you choose a mastermind group or whatever, make sure that either you vary it up somehow. So you vary up the kind of people you're accountable to, and make sure that they're higher players than you. Generally, if you're the smartest people in the room, you are in the wrong room.
Yes, I guess that's true because yes.
That's the key, I guess.
How do you do it?
I've actually got three different groups. 3 different groups for accountability. So these are small masterminds, and I meet with them so once a month for a group, and and twice a month in the case of a coaching another coach that I meet with. Mm-hmm. In that case, we're more specific about the next steps. We're more specific about what there is to do. So yeah, I do use accountability.
I have an accountability partner myself. I have a local friend here who we account for each other. I have to say though, there's a tendency to become a bit of a let people off a bit when we get this. So we're going to have to kind of find ways of changing that one. Because when you start getting quite strong together, you kind of let each other off. It's quite difficult, I think, sometimes.
It's relationships are really important for business. So anytime you can find new circles to hang out with, it's always a good thing.
I had a friend who was writing a book. This is probably 10 years ago. No, 6 or 7 years ago now. And he had the deadline. It was a publishing deadline. So he had the deadline. He had to get this book written. And he was struggling with it. And so he had so many chapters to get done. And the only solution he came up with in the end to force him to get it done was he got 500 quid out the bank.
Okay.
And he divided it up into envelopes. And he put dates on every envelope with when the chapter had to be complete before this envelope was opened. And then he gave it to a friend, the whole lot. And if he didn't turn up with the chapter, he didn't get the money back.
Okay.
And the friend burnt the envelope in front of him. If he didn't make it, the envelope was burned.
Wow. Okay, that's powerful.
It was powerful. He said he only lost one envelope, and he said, "God, money stinks when you burn it. It really smells bad."
That's a powerful one. And you know what? Accountability is good when you've got things in your business that you have to do but you don't really enjoy, but they're part of the process. In that case, that's where accountability is the most important thing. It's like for example, writing a book, I don't really need accountability for that because that's the easy thing for me. Because it's writing, that's what I'm comfortable with. But if really contacting businesses, really going out after clients, that's way harder for me. So in that case, that's where I would need accountability. Sending emails, same thing. It's no longer a problem. So make sure that accountability is for what you are not the best at doing, let's say.
So okay, so we've got some accountability going, and and suddenly we hit this wall. We've got this problem. It's getting tough, and it's called the pit of despair or the pit of doom or what have you. It's the bit where, oh, I'm going to give up this thing. It's too hard.
Yeah.
What's the secret for getting out of the pit of doom?
So basically, for any goal, you have the outcome goal. So that's something that you choose. So the 90-day goal will be an outcome goal. Let's say a money goal or a number of client goal, whatever you choose. And to get to the outcome goal, you need behavior goals. You need to know that every day you're taking the right actions, and these are completely in your control. So the outcome is not in your control very often. When it's a money goal, the outcome is not completely in your control, but the behavior and the actions are. So first, measure how well you are taking the actions, because very often, just like what I do is I've got my Google form that I fill up every day. Yep. Daily tasks that I need to make. I've got my 3 wins of the day, and that keeps me accountable, but for the behaviors that I need to set up.
Yep.
And at the end of the 30-day cycle, the first 30-day cycle, if my goal isn't reached, I know that my behavior was wrong. So in that case, I just have to change the behavior. It's really bringing simplicity back in the game. Because very often we say, oh, it's too hard. But when you look further and when you measure what you've done, either you haven't been taking the right actions or you haven't been taking them consistently. Mm-hmm. So reaching the pit, either you are getting to the goal, in that case you get a victory, or you are not. In that case, you get a lesson. In that case, you can also be grateful for the lesson. Okay, this doesn't work. So how can I do this differently? Because ultimately, the temptation is to give up the goal entirely, but it just comes from taking different actions. That's it.
I think it's easy to talk about this in terms of kind of you and I, in terms of I don't know much about your business, but I know mine is relatively simple. There is me, there is clients, there is work to do with clients, I think it gets a lot more complicated when you've got a more sophisticated business. Well, not necessarily sophisticated, but certainly a business which is more hands-on. If you're running a pub or a restaurant, there are things that have to be done. There's no escaping all this. It's like a slow moving train. It doesn't stop. The train keeps going. So you can't get off the train to make another decision. The train will keep moving. Service has to start at a certain time of the day. There needs to be suppliers that to be paid. It's about finding space and capacity to fit those goals in. And that's where the pit of doom and disaster comes from, because it's like, how the hell do I fit this in, in all these things? Now, that could be an inappropriate goal, but if the business has to grow, the business has to grow.
Yeah. But normally when you set the goal of growing your business, the goal of a business normally is to grow.
Yeah.
Generally, actually listing the number of obstacles that you've met in the past will speed up your success, because if you list the number of obstacles that you have encountered before, suddenly you can prepare for them. So if you say, like for a restaurant, let's say that they're going to be overwhelmed with work, maybe the simple solution is to hire someone. And then if the money isn't there to hire someone, so maybe there's a next step before hiring someone. Let's make sure that some systems are in place, so that so some marketing systems are in place so that more people can come in before the money can be there to hire someone. But very often it's facing the fact that, okay, things as they have been so far are not working, and if they're not working, let's change them. Mm-hmm. And some people, actually, in any business, you can hiring someone is kind of scary all the time. But in a lot of businesses, you can hire students on a very cheap. Students who'll be willing to work for almost free for a few months just to learn the craft, and that can lead to more productivity immediately, and then more money, so that you can hire the real person who can, or just the same student but this time paid what they're worth.
Yeah. Yeah, there are always solutions to hiring people. There are always, it's not
Yeah,
just it's not just cut and dried. I need to employ someone. There is, there are kind of symbiotic things you could do. There's always, as you say, there's always an opportunity if you want to look at that. But it's about having an open mindset to it rather than I have to employ someone. It's well, I have to employ someone, but there's wider opportunities here.
Yeah, and sometimes just hiring a contractor is the it's the easy thing to do.
Well, I have the same thing in marketing. People have come to me and said, "Look, could we do a swap?" And I've done swaps with people in terms of time or things or little money and a bit of swap. So we've worked it out so to help people out in that respect. So there's always options, isn't there? Really.
Yeah.
So okay, so just to clarify, we've found our why. We've got a goal. We've found our why. We've got a goal to do that, and we've got a system in place to get to the goal, and we've got accountability in place, and we've covered the pit of despair as such, and we've covered the.
That generally will come at third. So if you set 90-day goal, you will hit the pit between 30 and 60 days.
Okay.
Generally, that's it on the second month.
Yes, I did last. That's what I did last year. That's exactly what I did last year.
You're enthusiastic. You set the goal. It's also, choosing a goal that stretches you, but is still achievable.
So let's talk about that then. Let's talk about that. Yes, because you've got goals. They can be small, medium, and large. It's like the very big goal, the 10-year goal. So how do we need to come out how we're going to get to one of those? So let's talk about goals in terms of size and determination or power of a goal.
Well, if you set a 10-year goal, the sky is the limit. You can imagine anything. Suddenly your mind is free to wander. Then when you bring it closer to reality, so 90 days from now, then it becomes harder to set an ambitious goal, let's say. So generally, the best way to do it is to look at the ideal life that you want to have. So suppose in 10 years, everything has happened exactly the way you wanted. Where would you be? What would your life look like? How many hours would you be working? All that stuff. How much money would you have? Because then that helps you define how much money would have to come in, how many employees you would have, all these things. And since it's 10 years from now, it's not stressful for the brain. It's 10 years from now, so you're able to actually look at the situation quite without your thinking mind, taking power. Then, when you've got that ideal setup, the ideal is not necessarily meant to be reached, but it allows you to pull goals from it. So that's why you have to imagine it with as many details as possible. Because you know that the ideal cannot be met in 90 days.
No.
And then when you've got all the details, okay, gee, what's achievable in there in 90 days? And that's how you pull your 90-day goal. Because then it brings you closer to your ideal. So that's another why that you can have. It brings you closer to your ideal, and it must stretch you. So it must have you lean into an edge without becoming unrealistic, because otherwise after 15 days you're going to give up. So that's why
I need to say about that big goal. What I've looked at this, because I actually find that big future thing quite difficult to kind of hit, but what has worked for me, and I'm still working on it, is breaking it down into areas. And I found this in a book called the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is an old book by Stephen Covey. And he talks about breaking it down into the areas of life. So you've got the spirituality, or your connection with your, the greater. You've got the personal, the family relationships, the business relationships, and the health. He breaks it into 4 areas. And then look at goals where you want to be in those areas in 10 years. And I think that is more balanced way of looking at it. Because what can happen if I look at 10 years, I want to running a big company, because ego can come flying in at that point. Whereas if I balance that, if I'm running a big company in 10 years, how's that going to sit with my spirituality, and how's that going to sit with my health? And so I've got a way of kind of molding this thing a bit better when breaking it into pieces.
And I mean, I always set goals in several areas as well. So what I've got is health, wealth, and relationship, because relationship can also be your relationship with spirit. So in that case, you break down 4 in 3, but it's pretty standard to have the 4 areas as well, and it helps you not become this one-dimensional guy. Because when you focus too much of your attention on one thing, then all the rest will suffer. So that's when you find that a lot of good, very successful businessmen have a completely wrecked marriage. So, and if you ask me to choose between my business and my marriage, I'll choose my marriage every single time.
Same here.
So yeah, and it's important to know that, because then for every goal, that there are things that you have to sacrifice somehow. There are sacrifices to make, and it's important to know what sacrifices you're not ready to make.
Well, that's why I am where I am, because so to be on the table here, we need to move forward. We need to change our situation here, because over the last 12 years, I've dedicated myself and focused on family and my son. I'm only having one child. And so it's all been about what I need to do for him and being here. But he doesn't need me so much anymore, because he's now 14. And so I've got space now to actually develop my business and anything else, because I need to, because I don't have a pension. So in 10 years time, I'm going to be looking at, do I want to be doing this forever? I need to be kind of thinking about creating the bigger nest egg for the future and getting out some of the debt that we carry. So there's all sorts of bits and pieces that need to be done, but that will only happen by me expanding my horizons or expanding my business. Yeah. But you're right. I took the choice to say, no, I want to be at home for my son. I want to be here. I'm still here for him, but I want to be able to go to the school plays. I want to be the one that takes him here and that sort of stuff. So that's what I've done. And you're right. We all make those sacrifices for those things.
Yeah. Actually, we've got a question by Shuri. When do you feel a goal is no more achievable? What would you answer, Paul?
When you feel a goal is no more achievable? Well, I think sometimes goals wear out. I think this thing about, a goal is a direction. And so if my choice was, this was the goal I made now, at some point that goal may no longer serve you, because your wires changed. I mean, I can't think of an example. All right, here's an example, a bad example, but a high example. Supposing I worked in the oil industry and I was very much focused on the oil industry. And now suddenly I become really conscious that actual fact, climate change is a real thing. Before I didn't believe in climate change. Now I do. Now suddenly my work in the oil industry is running contrary to my belief.
Yeah.
My plan was originally to become a CEO of a large oil company. It doesn't feel so good now. Yeah.
Yeah. What I would say is, you can realize that you no longer want the goal, as you said, and that's happened to me quite a few times, actually. Like some goal that I set that I thought would bring me something, and then I realized, what the hell was I thinking? It's not going to change anything. And actually, when you reach the 90-day deadline and you feel that the goal won't be achieved, it may just be that you needed more time. So it doesn't mean you have to give up the goal if you really want it. Maybe you have to adjust the strategy, but if the goal doesn't seem achievable, but you still want it, there is still a way.
I also think what is important here for everyone really is that while a goal is important, the journey's got to be important too.
Completely.
And valuable, because if the journey is shite, there is absolutely no reason why you're going to enjoy the process. And when the goal gets it, it'll be very hollow.
And yeah, Steve Chandler has this saying, they all say, do what you love and you won't work another day. But he says you have to reverse it. It's love what you do. So learn to love what you do, even the things that bore the shit out of you. You can find a way to love them. So in that case, you just set up a small reward at the end of that task, which normally wears you out, and or make it fun.
I'm trying that one with my son at the moment because he has a problem with school. He just really says this stuff is just so boring, and I'm kind of going, yeah, but it is a means to an end, you know. And you kind of, can you find the value out of it? Oh, Dad, go away.
14, yeah. It's the age, right?
It is the age, yes. It's definitely the age of like nothing's good enough, but you know, you have to keep working with it.
Yeah. But well, in that case, in the case of your son, maybe he has subjects that he likes. Maybe a few.
Yeah, he does. There are subjects he likes, and next year it'll be better because he's chosen subjects that he moves into next year that he'll be doing the subjects that he wants to do. At the moment, there's a curriculum that's set for him, so that's what he has to do. So that's the challenge. But you know, I'm trying to get him to the point where he does get to the point where he can see the greater picture. But we're working on it. We work on it on a daily basis.
He has standard grade this year.
No, not yet. Not this year. It'll be year after.
Okay.
Yeah, year
because
after.
you know what, I used to teach in Scotland, so I know the
well, there you go.
I know the school system in Scotland. Yeah, that was 9 years ago.
Oh wow, doesn't time travel.
Scotland.
Okay,
Yeah.
we've been going 44 minutes or thereabouts, 41 minutes. So let's actually 44 according to the list. Let's try and sum up where we've been to and where we're going and what we can draw out of this. And perhaps I'll put it to you to sum up because you've done more speaking on this than I have, and I think you have a sense of where we're going with this.
All right. So basically, the biggest reason that, you know what, I'm gonna actually talk about a question to ask whenever you imagine a goal, imagine an outcome that you want.
Yeah.
The question that we rarely ask is, how am I in the way? Let's imagine that this thing was actually easy and that nothing could stop us but ourselves. Then you ask, how am I in the way?
Yeah, I can see that works.
Yeah. So that's generally
so if you haven't got enough clients, I'm in the way because I'm not making enough phone calls.
Yeah, completely. So very often that's it, because ultimately we are the ones who stop ourselves. And this is, you know, when you're looking at the situation, when you are in the pit and you've got all these angry thoughts, these what we call attack thoughts. Ultimately, attack thoughts only harm ourselves. So that's another powerful key. And yeah, so these are two great things to consider. Like, how am I in the way, and like, why do we see the outcome as so far away? When turns out we all know people who have achieved what we want to achieve. So it's not like it's impossible. It's just that we find ways to not get it, or we haven't learned enough lessons yet. In that case, it's about being patient and learning more lessons. And that means that's why also the 90-day goal is a great way to detach from a goal, because for many people, just having a goal is stressful. But normally, actually having a goal is even more important than reaching it, because that stimulates you, that gives you a reason to wake up in the morning, and you always have something to measure too. Also, I will say for the pit, always measure. So don't always measure how far there is still to come, but how far you have come.
Measure the journey rather than this distance you have to go. Yeah.
Because very often you will realize that you have taken steps, that you have progressed. It may not have been fast enough, but you have progressed. So in that case, it's just becoming more patient. Like, Rome wasn't built in one day, right?
Yeah, there's a famous marketer, and I can't remember his name now. One of the famous ones who always says people always underestimate what they can achieve in 3 months. No, yeah, they overestimate what they can achieve in 3 months, but underestimate what they can achieve in a year.
That's Tony Robbins, I think.
I'm not sure it was Tony Robbins. I think he quoted someone else. It's even older than that, actually. But okay. It's quite interesting, isn't it? That, as you say, it's because we don't realize how far we travel in the space of a year, because there's a compound process going on here, isn't there, really?
Yeah.
You know, when you put systems in place and things are happening, and those things happen faster because the systems are in place. And it's quite interesting how that works. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. No, I think I'd finished.
Okay.
Also, actually, that's one powerful thing that Dan Sullivan, this strategic coach, it's one powerful tool that he has when it comes to just spreading your time. Because you were thinking people want to finish by Christmas, all that stuff. One of the first things, so Dan Sullivan, his goal is to take people from a 6-figure business to a 7-figure business. So it's always about 10xing your goal. Why 10x? Because if you want to double your business, you will think about doing more work. But if you want to 10x your business, you have to delegate. You have no choice. There's no way you can work 10 times as much.
Right.
So the first thing he has business people do is to take a day off during the week. Because then they will be super strategic about the way they spread their time during these other days. And I mean, the people I know who've taken his program say that it's worked wonders for them. And he also has you plan your year and take almost 1 month vacation in advance so that you have this thing to work towards. And you will, because the deadline is there, you will get to the deadline because you have this you have this reward of the holiday, the 1 month holiday.
Yeah.
That's a powerful thing as well. When we're told to hustle more and more, he actually takes a step back and says, no, actually hustling more will have you tired and bored. And it's about variety and also a sense of satisfaction. Because if we feel that we have to hustle more and more for more money, in the end we're going to give up. Because we're saying, that's not worth it.
No, I agree. And it is about that process of finding systems. And I mean, it works for that project because the business of that size will have resource to be able to delegate.
Completely. That's why you only work with 6-figure businesses.
And that's the point.
You actually select. You have to send him a letter from your accountant. He only works with 6-figure businesses. Otherwise, what he teaches doesn't have as much value, I would say.
It's interesting because a friend of mine who is a very good marketer, and he was a very good direct marketer before the internet. And when he closed his internet business for various reasons, he started. He closed this direct marketing business, and he moved more into the internet. And he still had the lists and bits and pieces, and he came up with an idea of a project for someone. So he sold this project to people, and he said, look, come to me with an idea. I will vet the idea. And if it has legs, I will support you with that idea to create your website, do all the text for you. And I will sort it out with the text and we'll do everything for you, including sending it to a list so that you can actually make a business. So that's what you're going to get, a business basically in a box. Literally, you pay me, and it was £9,000. You pay me £9,000. It's going to be a group. There'll be 10 of us doing this. You pay me £9,000, and I will get this done for you. Right? Only one person completed the process. 10 people paid him £9,000 each, and only one person actually completed the process. So what does that say? What does that say? It says I didn't charge enough.
Well, you know what? That's also that's really in line with the stats on online courses. Most online courses, only 10% of the people complete them. 10%.
Been there, done that.
That's it. And that's why I guess the secret for online courses in the next year, in the next 5 years, will be not the content or what is taught, because let's just be real. We all kind of teach the same thing in the end, but it's about how we systemize it, how we make people accountable, how we make it easy for them to implement. And that's the secret for online courses in the next 5 years. The guys who are going to kill it and get testimonials are guys who will focus on that, not having like the magic, the 5 magic keys.
No, I think Scott Orford is nearly there. Actually, Scott Orford has a very good system for that.
Sorry?
Scott Orford has a very good system for that in the Infinitus system. He's very, very clever with it, and it's all about implementation. It's an implementation system.
Yeah, I follow him as well. He's really great. That's why he's killing it, because he has understood that.
Yeah, he has, and he's got a lot of testimonials from people that have done very successful. Anyway, look, I think we're coming to an end. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to kind of explore this process with you, and
You're welcome.
And what can I say other than thank you very much for your time?
You're welcome. I think we've got another question before we go.
Okay, have we?
Are there any good books or articles, notes either of you have written about 90-day goals? There's a webinar that I've done. I think it's not the last one, it's the one before it, which you can find on YouTube or on my website.
There's some good 90-day material about. I'll see if I can find something and send it out to Liz, because there's been a few PDFs about this. I'm sure I might have even seen one myself somewhere about 90-day scheduling.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always the book. This book is well worth getting. I mean, what is it? 10 quid thereabouts, if that. About that, yeah, about 10 quid, I think, and it's probably available on Kindle as well. So it's a pretty good book. And yeah, I mean, what I noticed, I only discovered here the common pitfalls. I noticed this morning. I just happened to pick it up this morning. You know, your plan is not aligned with your long-term vision. We said that today. You aren't staying focused. We said that today. You know, the whole thing. It's in here. It's a very good book, actually, very well worth reading. I will go back to it, I think, and do some more work on it. Anyway, so thanks again, Anthony. Thanks for your time, and we'll catch up. And this recording, there will be a recording here. You can get the link if you want to send it out to people. You're please welcome to do so.
Great. Okay, thank you for inviting me, and have a very nice day, everyone.
And yourself. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.